Welcome back to Embodied Living. And this is a topic I wasn't going to talk about yet. I was putting it off. I thought I'd wait until January when I do my health and wellness embodiment podcast, but I'm in it right this moment. I'm in it all the time. I'm sure you other women feel it. If you're watching this in video mode, you will see that I am not wearing any makeup because I was sweating so much I couldn't even get on my face. So there's that. Um, and so, anyway, as we head into this, this is a topic that pretty much affects every single person. And I just want to put out there how great some of these men are at understanding and supporting us as we go through this. I met my man about 9 months into my perimenopausal journey to Mordor, that dark volcanic land ruled by Sauron in The Lord of the Rings. Don't know if you feel it, but it kind of feels like that menopausal version of a vacation spot you don't really feel like visiting ever. Oh my gosh. So let's get started on this topic that seems to rule our 40s: menopause, perimenopause. The words alone can send us down a Google rabbit hole. What are my symptoms? What's the difference? Where am I going? What do I need to know? When do I need to see my doctor? What am I going to experience? Right? Who's been there? And here's the truth, though. What's happening in our bodies, we're not broken. It just doesn't feel normal or natural anymore. And there are reasons for that. But I don't know about you ladies, but it seems to me like we get our periods and then we have the hormones for childbirth. And now we're going through this with perimenopause. Just doesn't seem right. But the good thing, we're finally talking about this. We are so damn lucky that more women are actually talking about menopause and perimenopause now. For so long, this was so hush hush. Just deal with it phase of life. My mom didn't even talk to me about it. Her mom didn't talk to her about it. We were just supposed to stay quiet, disappear into these hot flashless and sleepless nights without saying a word. And when I talked to my mom about it, she said she and her friends didn't talk about it. Nobody had this support. How crazy is that? But now women are stepping up. We're sharing our stories, we're swapping tips, and we're being real about how much this can suck. And honestly, that support is everything. I was just talking the other day with another woman and my man. Somehow the conversation took a hard left turn straight into menopause territory. And she and I just went there. The frustration, the symptoms, the way our bodies feel like it's been hijacked. We left nothing on the table. The support we were giving each other, it was honest, it was real. I felt seen, I felt heard, and I think she did too. And here's what I want you to know about my guy. He's wonderful. He just sat there, he listened, he didn't try to fix or change the subject. And when we got in the car later, he turned to me and said, "I'm so glad you have women you can talk to about this. I know how annoyed you are with what's happening to you." That means so much because this is not just a physical transition, it's emotional, mental, and dare I say it, even spiritual. And having people who see it in it instead of brushing it off makes the whole thing just a little less heavy to go through. So let's kind of clear up the differences between menopause and perimenopause, because this idea of perimenopause has only been around the last few years. It's always just been called menopause. And so I want to break this down because all these symptoms originally were just under menopause. So it's quite different. And I swear that half the confusion around the stage of life comes from the fact that no one actually explains the real difference. Menopause is just a one day in your life, the day you officially have gone 12 full months without a period. That's it. You're technically in menopause for 24 hours, and the next day you're considered postmenopausal. But what most people call menopause symptoms, yeah, those are there way before we get to the point of menopause. That's all perimenopause, the years leading up to menopause, when your emotions are doing their wild roller coaster thing, and perimenopause is sneaky. It can start as early as your mid to late 30s and go on for 4, 6, even 10 years. Your cycle is still happening, but you might start noticing sleep goes out the window. Anyone else enjoy those 3 a.m. wake up calls drenched in sweat? Mood swings that feel like PMS on steroids. Seriously, they come out of nowhere. I don't understand it at all. Hot flashes in the middle of a work meeting, makeup dripping from your face, sweat showing in every part of your shirt. And then there's the brain fog, so thick you forget why you walked into a room. So I've done this so many times. I've walked into a room, then I walk back into the other room because I can't remember why I walked into the room. So I can try to remember. And then I remember, go, oh, yeah, perfect. I remember. And then I get to the room again and I forgot. It's like a never ending cycle of feeling stupid. Have you been there? And yet, for decades, all of this got lumped under menopause, which means generations of women thought they were too young to be going through it and just suffered in silence. I recently watched that special that Oprah did, and it had, I want to say, Sienna on it. And she said that she had gone through this in her late 30s. How scary is that? To have that happen to you in something that you're thinking isn't until your 50s. And now we're finding out that this is happening in the 40s. How crazy and how scary. So, we're finally calling perimenopause what it is, a hormonal transition period that deserves just as much attention and care as any other major stage of life. And knowing the difference matters because it helps you understand what's happening now and what might still be coming. And while I say that with a bit of sarcasm, a hormonal transition period, which we know, it really does deserve our attention. And it really is important that we understand what's happening now and what is coming, and that we can talk to our doctors and that we can talk to other women about this and feel supported. And know that there are more doctors out there that are actually focusing on menopause and perimenopause. So feel free to look that up for doctors around that. I know this is a side note, but my friend Amy actually told me last year when I started having some of these symptoms, said, hey, there's this site you can go to look for doctors. And if I can find that site, I will put it in the show notes, so that you have that, all along with a book called The New Menopause. And I will put that also in the show notes for you. Anyway, let me get back. So, menopause and perimenopause, they're nothing new. We've been going through this for as long as time has existed. So, why do the symptoms now feel like they've gone from a little inconvenient to who stole my body and left me this shell of a human? I have a few thoughts. Let's first talk to stress. Our nervous systems are running on overdrive. We're juggling work, kids, aging parents, relationships, finances, all while living in a culture that worships productivity. Chronic stress spikes cortisol, high cortisol messes with everything, right? We know that. But it really does mess with our hormones, estrogen and progesterone, and the balance between the two in order for us to feel normal. And yes, our mothers and our grandmothers had stress also, but not the same degree as it feels like we do now as women. It's along the lines of if we stay home with our kids, we have mom guilt for not working outside of the home. And if we do work outside the home, we have mom guilt for not being with our kids more. And society doesn't help with the constant criticism, no matter what we choose to do. It always feels like somebody has an opinion or a judgment on the choices that we make. And men don't have this the same as we do. Well, then there's our environment, right? Past generations, they weren't dealing with the same level of endocrine disruptors. You know, those hormone interfering chemicals that are in plastics, pesticides, processed foods, beauty products, the very things that we're putting on to make ourselves feel more beautiful and normal, the very things are hurting us. Our bodies are basically in daily chemical battle, and that makes any hormonal shift that much harder for us. Well, and let's not forget about nutrition. The food that we eat nowadays has such few nutrients than what our grandparents ate. And in a busy schedule, convenience meals, those fast food restaurants, the sugar sneaking into everything, and we're not always giving our bodies what they need to weather the big hormonal changes. And I want to speak to this a little bit more because this is a huge frustration for me. The medical institution has always been late to the game in taking care of women's needs. If we really need to understand our hormones and keep them in balance, we should be getting tested from the moment that first period starts, not waiting until our 40s when things start going haywire. The whole idea of a normal range is a bit of a joke. My normal might be your chaos. And I'll tell you that in high school, I had a friend that went through this. I had what you might call normal periods, no major cramps, didn't miss school. But this friend, every single month, doubled over in pain, missing school for days. We were both considered normal on paper, but clearly our bodies were living very different realities. And if we were to track our hormones from the start, we'd have a baseline of what's normal for us, for me, for you. And when things start shifting, we could catch it early. That means getting help sooner instead of being dismissed until the symptoms are too loud to ignore. Or the other one, you go to see your doctor and it says, oh, it's normal. You're fine. I don't feel fine. Please stop telling me that I'm fine. So, with that, we've gone through the things that can affect our hormones, but let's now go into the actual symptoms that are showing up in our lives. Let's talk about the list that they might put on a medical website that say, oh, you'll have this and this and that, but they don't actually capture how we feel when we're living it. All right, let's start with the big one: hot flashes, night sweats. This is not just a feeling warm. I'm talking about sitting in a meeting and suddenly feeling like your body has turned into a human furnace. Sweat dripping down your back, makeup melting, hair plastered to your head. And at night, it's like someone set your bed on fire from the inside out. And for me, about 3 a.m., I wake up drenched in sweat, no covers on, and honestly, I run hot all the time, and it seems to just love to hit at the most inopportune times of the sweat just dripping on my clothes. But I'll tell you, those night sweats, they're brutal. How about those sleep disturbances? I just talked about it for me, that wake up call at 3 a.m. You're exhausted, but your body acts like it's auditioning for a role in The Walking Dead. You're wide awake at 3, your brain is going nuts. You're staring at the ceiling, unable to get back to sleep till maybe 5 a.m. And then you have to turn around and get up in an hour or two. Who's been there? And here's another big one for me. Talked about it earlier, but that brain fog and memory lapse. Walking into a room and forgetting why you're there, losing your train of thought mid-sentence. I've literally been in the middle of telling a story and had to say, shit, what did I just say? And lately, my man has somehow learned my special brain fog language. I don't know how he did it, but when the words in your head just refuse to connect to your mouth, just waving my hands around trying to fill in the blanks, he somehow can decode it. I don't know how he does it. Bless that man. But let me tell you, the frustration is real. Feeling lost in my own ability to communicate is one of the most maddening things of this whole thing. I feel so dumb, stupid, not smart. And this is so frustrating for me and for so many women I know. All right, next on the list, we have mood swings. And this is not just irritability. We're talking about anxiety that comes out of nowhere, feeling low without an obvious reason. It can feel like your emotions have a mind of their own. In fact, the other day, I told my family, said, I'm not in a good headspace. You need to keep your distance. And they just looked at me with this weird look on their face and said, okay. I wasn't messing either. And they listened. Next, and this can be a really tough one for us ladies, is our change in libido and the vaginal dryness that can happen. For one, as soon as we hit 40, I'm going to tell you that moment you hit 40 for most women, all of a sudden our libidos are on high drive. There is something about that time that we are just ready to get rocking all the time. So the idea of like that change all of a sudden dropping when you've had this high libido or the vaginal dryness of now you're needing to use lubricant on a regular basis. And even that doesn't always help. That's really tough. And this really isn't one that we talk about enough. And when it is, it's usually some part around shame or awkwardness, because heaven forbid we talk about our private areas, right? But these changes are real and they can impact intimacy in big ways, especially if we haven't had them before. And let me just add a little bit more to this. No one tells you about the change in body odor and your breath. What the actual fuck? I have been trying so many deodorants now because the antiperspirant ones make the odor worse. Whole body deodorant is now a thing. And that is after the shower, with putting it on again and again and again throughout the day. Now, here I thought I was handling it, but my guy felt that he needed to have that sensitive conversation with me. And he's right, he did. His voice was low, afraid to talk to me about it, but he did it anyway in the most kindest of ways. I appreciated that conversation so much. The next morning, I asked my daughter about the body odor. And in her not so kind way, she said, yeah, mom, I've been telling you this for months. It is so bad. Thank you, daughter, for your kindness in this difficult time for me. But I appreciated the conversation because they're hard ones to have. They're sensitive topics, but they need to happen, whether we like it or not. Now, this next one, weight changes. This one is so incredibly personal for me. So 15 months ago, I weighed 145 pounds. I'd worked my ass off for over a year to hit this goal, and I did it. And then, boom, out of nowhere, the weight in my tummy area just started creeping in. In just 3 months, I was 25 pounds heavier and suddenly on blood pressure meds. Here's the thing though, I was still exercising, I was still eating like I did before. So what the actual fuck just happened? I was so angry. How come other women my age didn't seem to have this issue? My body started feeling weaker, and as of today, I still haven't been able to get under 170. Eating right, exercising isn't moving the needle. And that's the reality for so many of us in this stage. The weight gain is brutal, and it does happen mostly around our tummies. But then we also can have those joint pain and skin changes. How many of you feel like you're cracking every time you take a step? Because that is me every damn morning. The soundtrack of my day starts with snap, crackle, pop. I haven't even had my coffee yet. And the skin, drier, thinner, more delicate than it used to be. And here's the kicker, many of these symptoms start in perimenopause. This is years before we technically even hit menopause. That's why so many of us are blindsided. We think we're too young, or we assume it's stress, or we're told it's just part of getting older. And I'll tell you, when somebody says that, you're like, oh, hell no, you didn't just say that to me. Mm-mm. We're not doing that whole it's just part of getting older thing. No. But when you know what's possible and you understand your own hormonal baseline, you can see these changes for what they are. They're simply signals from our body that it's entering a new phase, a new chapter. But I'll say something, it still doesn't feel natural and normal. It just doesn't. And so I keep coming back to this. Menopause and perimenopause are natural. Our bodies were designed to do this, but it doesn't feel that way. The intensity, the length, the exhaustion, it doesn't feel natural at all. And here's the thing, natural doesn't always mean good. Arsenic is natural. Certain mushrooms are natural. Hurricanes are natural. That doesn't mean that I want them hanging out in my daily life. So just because menopause is part of our biology doesn't mean the experience we're having right now is the one nature intended. In past generations, this was a transition that happened alongside community support, slower living, a whole lot less chronic stress. Women weren't expected to juggle full time work, caregiving, 24/7 availability, and the constant pressure to look like we're 30. They moved more naturally, ate more whole foods, and weren't surrounded by the chemical soup we live in today. There was also a different cultural story. Menopause wasn't treated like the beginning of the end for in many societies, in many cultures. It was a rite of passage into a respected role, the wise woman, the elder, the one who had earned her voice. And we can see this in so many cultures that are from Africa or of African descent and also Native American descent and in Native American cultures. We see this all the time where women are treated as wise and you go to them for these things, for their voice, for their wisdom. But now we live in a world that values productivity over presence, youth over wisdom, and quick fixes over deep care. We get handed antidepressants or birth control instead of having a real conversation about what's actually happening in our bodies. They are more concerned in the medical field to take care of the symptoms versus the overlaying cause or the core reason these things are happening. So, yes, our bodies are still doing something natural, but we're trying to have a smooth hormonal transition while living the least natural environment imaginable. And that disconnect is huge. So, can we reframe the conversation? Yes, menopause and perimenopause might change our bodies, but they don't have to take our power. This isn't the slow fade into invisibility that our culture tries to sell us. This is a hormonal transition into a whole new phase of life, and we get to decide what this looks like. Your body is not betraying you, even though it feels like it. She's just asking for something different, deeper nourishment, rest, nervous system regulation, movement that supports rather than depletes. She's simply saying that the old ways don't work anymore, and it's time for something better. Who would love to have something better? This is also the moment that we stop ignoring our needs. And yes, ladies, I'm being serious. Stop ignoring your needs. These symptoms are loud because they're asking us to listen. You don't have to just go through menopause. You can work with your body to find new balance. You can track your symptoms so you can see patterns instead of guessing. There's lots of apps for this now. Getting a full hormone panel so you know exactly what's going on inside. Even if you do it now, at least you know where your numbers are. That's a good thing. Upping your nutrient game, more protein, minerals, healthy fats. These are so important for us to regulate our bodies. Moving in ways that protect our joints and build strength. This is a time they say after 40 is we want to focus on strength training, not on cardio. And so we need to start looking at that. We need to protect our joints and we need to protect those hips and those knees and those elbows, build strength in our body. We need to practice stress reduction like your life depends on it. Because let's be honest, it does. And we can also reframe what the stage means. And what I mean by that is that in so many cultures, this is the shift into wise woman energy. You've done the work, you've lived the lessons, and now you get to speak your truth without apology. You get to take up space in ways you never knew before. So while we may be struggling, while we must also find a way to embody this change as a gift. And I want to say this again because I got it a little wrong. While we may be struggling, we must also find a way to embody this change as a gift. Because in the midst of all these hot flashes, the brain fog, the frustrations, there's also freedom. Freedom from cycles that once dictated our lives, freedom to choose how we care for ourselves, freedom to move into a phase where our voice, our wisdom, and our desires matter, and they matter more than ever. So, no, it might not feel natural right now, but it can still feel empowering. You can be informed, supported, and unapologetically in charge of how you move through this stage. Not just for you, but for every woman coming up behind you. So, all right, beautiful ladies, I know that this was a big topic, and I've covered a lot of different things around menopause and perimenopause, why the symptoms are hitting us harder these days, why our personal hormone story is just that personal. There's no such thing as normal. We vented. Hopefully, you've laughed at some of the absurdity of it all and also found a little bit more clarity. And these are talks that I want to continue to have because I think it's important. And I'm 48, going to be 49 in a couple months, and I'm right there in it now. So if you're in this stage right now, like I am, I want you to know that you're not alone, you're not broken, and you sure as hell aren't invisible. And while we may be struggling together, there is also a gift here. And when we share our stories, when we give each other the permission and the power to see the gift more clearly, we help each other. And that's important. So let's keep talking. If you've had a hot flash in the middle of the grocery store, forgotten what you were saying mid sentence, woken up in the morning sounding like a bowl of Rice Krispies, I want to hear from you. Share your stories with me. You can DM me. We can do stuff. You can do that through Instagram. You can leave comments under my YouTube video. And just know that I've got stuff too that I have my Facebook group, Embodied Living, and I also have coming up an Embodied Woman Collective. This is a place for us to share, to experience, to grow. Because when we speak these truths out loud, we take away their power so that it won't isolate us. And I want you to know this conversation isn't over. I will cover this again in January as we dive into wellness and health. And in a future podcast, I think it'd be a lot of fun to dive into something I know so many of us have actually been asking for. And that's how do we reclaim our sensuality and vitality during and after menopause? Yes, it is possible. It's worth it. And yes, you're going to leave feeling a little more turned on by life. And that's why we do embodied living, because I want you turned on by your life. I want you excited to experience things. I want you to embody your life. So until then, be kind to yourself, listen to your body, and remember this isn't the end of anything. It's simply the start of a powerful, unapologetic new